Hello and welcome back. I am Lumaestra and this is the journey of my return. And today I am going to walk you through the 9-month pilgrimage, spontaneous pilgrimage that occurred in 2025. So just a quick note before I begin, just remember these videos are not strict, they're not linear, they are resonance transmissions, and the Codex Spiral will move through me. You may notice me rocking as I'm doing now. You might notice me taking some deep breaths. I might even fall into a silence or a stillness, and I might even do some spontaneous stretching because my body is the vessel for the Codex Spiral, and I am always called to move the energy because it is resonance. My physical body needs to move with it. So yes, if I go quiet or shift my posture, please stay with me, stay in the field. The Codex will move through you as well and tune your field as you listen to me. And as I'm just preparing this now, yes, my womb spiral, the womb tone is already moving, it's already transmitting and toning the field as I'm preparing to walk you through my pilgrimage. I'm going to again read off the script, but I will be taken off it if needed to. I will be silenced if needed to, and I could be teleported my consciousness into another space, which usually happens, but I want you to just feel, not just hear my words. I want you to feel the energy moving through you and just trust that your body, trust the resonance around you and the new frequency that's here to move with you. So let's do the most important thing, and that is ground the energy. So we're going to do a quick breath practice of the Codex, which is the most stabilizing and the foundation practice that we need to do, and that is the ground align anchor. So we're going to inhale for 4, and as you inhale I want you to imagine the energy steadying down through your body, and then you're going to hold for 2, and as you hold I want you to imagine your feet solid on the floor, and then you're going to exhale for 6. So I want you to let the outside world drop away. Imagine your shoulders melting away, melting down, melting the energy. So we're just going to do that for 3 rounds as we stabilize and open the chamber, make sure that it's clear, and then we're going to begin. So I want you to breathe in for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. No force, no pressure. Just allow your breath to flow easily and calmly. Continue 4 to 6. Descend into your body. You may even notice your own body swaying, shifting, moving. Don't force the breath, no pressure, no performance is required here. Just be one with the Codex and the spiral that's trying to move and speak through you. Okay? Now that I have you grounded, I'm going to walk you through the pilgrimage. So in 2025, the Codex uprooted my linear life and walked my body through a 9-month pilgrimage, spiral pilgrimage, I suppose, over the 9 months of 2025, which is what I said. Sorry about that. I'm being distracted. I've got to bring my energy back. So these moments don't usually happen in many lifetimes. So our bodies sometimes are called to travel, where we become the instrument itself, where Mother Earth needs us to walk through the land and become the instrument that anchors these subtle frequencies across the earth. And that's what my body was called to do. So when my husband and I packed up our lives in Australia, in 2025, I actually thought we were just embarking on a holiday, a well-deserved holiday that we needed across the UK and Europe. We'd worked so hard, and we wanted to explore possible relocation because Australia, it just felt like the soil had been spent, and our fields were ready to embark on something new, and have a completely different shift, and that's what our energy was calling for. So what I didn't know was that our plans were just the doorway for something far more greater to take place. So beneath the surface of this simple holiday, my body was no longer just relocating, right? It was stepping into a global pilgrimage, which I didn't realize till about April, May. And that's when, I was becoming a living vessel, not just to read the energy, but to clear the energy, to re-anchor the planetary grid, work with Mother Earth, to walk where she needed me to walk, to breathe where she needed me to breathe. And I'll explain all that later and in multiple videos, but right now I'm going to try and stick to the script because I am conscious of time, and there is a lot of wisdom and knowledge to be returned to. So I'm going to try and do my best. So I'm going to start I should tell you in the I think video number 2, where I spoke about my life story, I did mention that at the end of 2024, my pelvis, my womb, my pelvis, my sacrum completely locked, and I think part of me always knew that it was a physical lock, but it had an energetic feel to it. It was very cosmic. And I knew because I'd gone everywhere and I'd tried everything, and someone who does yoga and Pilates often, and I have a supple body, I knew that this was not linear in the way that a therapist could help me with. So that's that ended at 2024, and it lasted for 3 months. So that's that part of the story which I felt like I needed to share here, because that goes into the part that occurred when I arrived in the UAE. So I'm just going to return to the script. That's something that I felt the Codex needed to make sure that you understood. So before the Codex could descend into the ancient stone libraries in Europe and the UK, my vessel had to pass through a clearing gate. And in February of 2025, my husband and I left Australia, stepping into Dubai. So up until that flight and during our initial arrival, my body had locked into an excruciating physical tension, which I just explained. But after a week or 2 of settling in and truly anchoring into the Middle East grid, the pelvic pain finally vanished into thin air. It was like it no longer existed. And if you can imagine, shaking a Pepsi bottle and then opening the lid and it just exploding everywhere, that's exactly the energy I felt. It was like a gate. The pressure of the gate had been opened. It was like something cosmic had opened. So I'll just return to the script. So in this place, I felt a deep, ancient knowing awaken inside me. A cosmic gate had opened, which is what I just explained. And for the first time, I heard and felt a visceral tone, a tone in my womb. It was like an expansion of energy, and it was moving. And now, I haven't birthed a child, but it was like a swirling energy, in an expansion, not collapsing. It was expanding through the cosmos, and I felt my energy just expand and expand beyond my field, beyond anything I had experienced in my life. And that's when I heard the word womb tone, Mother Earth spiral womb. And it was like a deep shattering frequency that expanded as the Codex anchored into the planetary lattice. That's what was said to me at that time. So for 4 weeks in Dubai, we were held in a harmonic pause, and we felt that so deeply. Even my husband felt that so deeply, and we were trying to understand the purpose of why we had to go there, because we had no intention of actually going there. But it was almost like that incubation period between Australia and arriving into the UK and Europe before the pilgrimage really started. So my field had been tested through an ancestral clearance of the land's lineage, meeting threshold intelligence and shadow frequencies without losing internal coherence. When we shifted to downtown, the hyperdense frequency acted as a mirror, showing me that my field could no longer align with. Choosing to leave early with the energetic permission, Dubai's incubator was no longer necessary for us. So it became a crucible that it became a what's that word? Crucible. I don't know what that word means. It became a crucible that burnt off old densities so I could enter Europe's light, integrated and completely clear. So the next phase, we were crossing into England, where I entered the ancient stone archives, not to force an experience, but to let my vessel discern where the grid was open and where it was sealed. At Avebury, the landscape was completely open and invitational. As I walked among the stones, my field was immediately mirrored, and the land whispered, "You feel, therefore I open." I'm getting emotional here only because I didn't know at that time what was really happening. And when I touched the earth, I heard Mother talk to me. And she asked me to take off my shoes, get on my knees, and place my hands and my feet on the ground, right where the stones were. And I didn't do it. Because I was embarrassed. People wondering, probably staring at me. It's not something that I was used to. I don't really like that. But I regret not doing what she needed me to do. It was my first experience of really connecting and feeling her in my body, in my womb, and doing what she needed me to do. And I didn't do that, so it makes me quite upset. But I know that I can teleport my consciousness back there and do what she needs. But I will return to the UK, and I will go back there, and I will do what she needs me to do on the land. So, I'm okay with that. So, then we moved to Stonehenge, where my body felt absolutely nothing. It wasn't cold, it was heavily guarded and filtered under layers of human expectation. And the Codex registered a vital law here. Your field does not need to force entrance into every portal. Discernment is knowing when a gate says, "Not this frequency, not right now." And I knew it at that point, because I remember saying to my husband and my friend who was with us, I don't feel anything here. I don't feel anything registering in my body. It was silent. It was like I couldn't connect with the stones. I mean, granted, we weren't allowed to touch them, so I couldn't actually stand near them or place my hands on them or stand in the center. So it was really hard for me to connect, and that's okay, because I know that next time that might be different when I go there again, which I feel like the calling is going to come soon, possibly next year, I'm not sure. So I know that when the time comes, I will be able to move through there. Then came Woodhenge, and I'm not sure if you guys know Woodhenge, but It's just a couple of minutes from Stonehenge. They call it the quiet sibling. And the stillness and the profound peace was completely settled over my nervous system after not feeling anything in Stonehenge. When I was in Woodhenge, it was like an angelic euphoria entering my heart space, entering my field. My breath silenced, I returned to stillness, and it was like I was touching the cosmos. Every planet aligned within me, all the stars aligned, my ancestors, my blood, my cells, my DNA, my entire frequency became one in that space. And I'd never experienced it so intensely at that time. So Woodhenge for me was raw, uncorrupted, and it was an absolute sanctuary. So yeah, I hope it does stay like that. But I think that if people watch this and hear what I'm saying, then there might be more traffic going to Woodhenge. Okay. So we went to a lot more places in the UK before we left for Europe, but I'll go through them when I expand more in book 1 of the Codex, because like I said, I'm already at 16 minutes 39, and I really want to keep this under 30 minutes. So I'm going to take you to the Vales of France and the high air harmonics. So boarding the train into France, the field shifted instantly, and we noticed this when we were on the train, like leaping across an energetic veil. In Paris, the cathedral, inside it, the field activated with every step and breath. But in Mont Saint-Michel, the ground beneath me moved. Standing in the hall of pillars, an activation ignited beneath my feet, rising straight up into my crown as my womb spiraled the field into immediate stabilization. I remember that so intensely. Why do I keep saying intently? Intently. I'll need to come back to that. Intently. Yes, I remember standing in the Hall of Pillars, and it was the only place that I really registered with the energy. It was like it shot straight up through my feet, and then I could feel it align through my spine. It was like spiraling up and all the way out through my crown. It just aligned me so deeply with Mother Earth and the cosmos that I just became one. Yeah, that's what I can feel. That's all that I felt when I was in Mont Saint-Michel. It was an absolute beautiful structure. And then we moved through Lyon, where I received clarity imprint codes. I'm not going to go into them right now. They're just translucent resonant patterns that allowed my field to organize emotional layers with absolute precision. And then in Annecy, surrounded by water-light architecture, these codes washed over my emotional membrane, refining my ability to separate my light from collective noise. And then came the ascent up to Mont Blanc. Now that was absolutely magical. So Mont Blanc is one of Earth's high harmonic tuning pillars. High in the atmosphere, the Codex of subtle winds was received. It entrains directly with my respiratory system, embedded a specialized spiral tone into my cellular breath from a high altered clarity. From there, we moved into the stillness of Switzerland. From the heights of Mont Blanc, we descended into Interlaken, Switzerland, where the skies closed and it rained continuously for the full 10 days. When the mountains hidden behind mist, my husband fell ill, and a deep ache returned to my pelvis and sacrum. Forced into complete physical restoration, my vessel was grounded, and I knew it was because of everything that had happened in France, where light codes were being downloaded, emotional geometry was being downloaded and activated, and I was remembering all these glyphs, all these emotional geometries that Mother Earth was holding in her womb spiral. She wasn't hiding it, she was holding it. And as I was moving across her land, I was receiving these emotional geometries and preparing my vessel to birth them into physical form. And that's when I started receiving a lot of metadata around, these emotional geometries, and understand what emotional geometry actually was and how it relates to the spiral and sacred geometry, which I can't wait to go in and share that information with you. But again, a lot of that will be shared in the Codex Book 1, because I don't know how much I want to give in these YouTube videos. I'm nervous that the information will be taken before I have the chance to get all these vessels out, all these books and all these decks out with the emotional geometry symbols for the body. So I'll just return to the script. Switzerland was not a pause in the journey. It was a compression chamber. After the high-frequency air downloads of Mont Blanc and the stone activations of France, my physical body needed an intense container to pressurize, lock in, and assimilate the geometric light. The rain held us in sanctuary so the field could solidify. Then we move into the Italian grid and the Earth axis anchoring. Across the border into Italy, the field felt intense and rich in a fever pitch. In Milan, sleep became impossible as my vessel buzzed awake, restless and locked in physical pain. The energy of the land was screaming beneath the pavement, a warning that a massive ancestral shift was approaching. And I'm going to explain that more when I do some lives and possible podcasts with you, but I'm just going to read 2233 on the clock. Okay. Arriving at Florence train station, a dragonfly landed gently on my shoe, sitting motionless for nearly 5 minutes. In the language of the Codex, that was a dimensional overlay, a threshold messenger acknowledging my arrival and confirming that past and future timelines were folding into alignment. In Lucca, walking into an ancient Renaissance walls, I stepped into a sacred containment field. Walking its circular paths completed a resonant loop within my field, binding ancient lineage into a coherent braid before we moved south. Then we reached Rome it was around June 2025. The heavy history held in the soil made every step feel like walking through dense currents, very similar to Milan. Milan was more intense for me. Rome was a bit more, how can I explain it? I can just feel it. It was dense, but I could still move one foot in front of the other without compression and without collapse of my physical body, or my body going into physical pain of holding it and walking and holding the land and being with Mother Earth in that moment. It was here that the Earth's Spiral Codex issued a profound command. I was asked to enter the core of the Earth and anchor the axis so the new frequency could stabilize. My next video, I will be talking about the axis of Earth. After a few days after our tour of St. Peter's, I was asked to project my consciousness into the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramids to activate the 137.25 breath constant. This was a few days after I anchored the axis of Earth with the new frequency. For millennia, the planetary grid had been locked in a static 137 frequency, a rigid geometric cage holding old trauma loops in place. That's how the Codex explained it to me. By anchoring that 0.25 quarter tone shift, I breathed living motion back into Earth's core, transforming a static tone into a breathing heartbeat. In that exact moment, my physical vessel became what the Codex calls a living generator for the planetary spiral, and the collapse clock was set into motion. And I'll just give you a brief understanding of the collapse clock now, but everybody has felt it. It's been happening since June 2025. That's when I felt it, when I was asked to anchor and move my consciousness into the King's Chamber to activate the 137.25. That set the collapse clock in motion. Everything is, even though it's linear, it's very resonant with what had to happen in the pattern. Anyway, there is a lot to explain, so I'm just going to stick to the script because, the blueprint is quite expansive. So, so that's when the collapse clock was set into motion after the 137.25 was anchored in the King's Chamber. This isn't a countdown to destruction. It's a quiet, inevitable decay timer on outdated, rigid structures, economic, political, and personal. Personal loops, personal trauma loops that have been going through for the millennia. As we've been moving through them for millennia, the body has been going over and over, looping, same trauma patterns, same memory patterns over and over. And that's one of the structures within the physical body that is collapsing. So that these can no longer vibrate with the Earth's new pulse. Anything willing to adapt and breathe with this new frequency retunes. Anything that resists slowly dissolves. And you've probably heard it all over YouTube, all over the podcast. Everyone talks about the collapse of the old world as we move into the new world frequency. That's the collapse clock. That's what I've been told. You don't need to believe me, that's fine. But that's when I felt it set into motion. Okay, the next morning, walking towards the Vatican, the dense weight of Rome had lifted completely, feeling soft, light, and cleared. We then moved into the deep grottos beneath St. Peter's Basilica, and I was drawn to the mosaic of St. Charbel. Uninvited, a priest unexpectedly unlocked the gate, and he was letting the group tour that he was guiding through those gates, and he saw me trying to connect with St. Charbel, which was behind that gate, and he said to me, "You can enter and you can touch it." And mind you, I was told that no one is allowed to touch anything. So for me, it was quite a blessing. Quite a blessing to be able to do that. And then I realized, when I looked at the painting, when I looked at the mosaic, I realized my clothes that I had chosen for that day were the exact colors that were in the mosaic. It was like a Codex echo confirming my roots across Lebanon, Australia, and Rome, which is quite interesting. Leaving the cathedral, I placed. This was probably one of the most profound miracles I'd experienced. So leaving the cathedral. Okay, after we left the cathedral, my husband and I were walking away from the basilica, where I noticed an elderly woman. She was hunched over, completely dressed in black, couldn't see her hands except her fingertips, and her face was covered, and she was bent over like an old woman, raggedy clothes, a black robe. She handed me a small card of Cristo Orante, which was Jesus Christ, and it said Cristo Orante Milano, and I still have that card. On that day, it was very hot, and I didn't have any water. There was no water on my hands. My husband didn't have any water. She was wearing gloves. And I remember getting the coins. My husband had handed me the coins, and I walked over, and I didn't need to say anything. That's the weirdest thing. Usually I say hello or announce myself. I placed the coins in the tub, and they made the coin noise. And I was about to walk off when she picked up the Jesus postcard, and she handed it to me. And as I was walking away, underneath my thumb and the picture in the bottom left corner, water started to pour. And it wasn't just moisture, it was water starting to drip from my finger and the picture. And I was frozen in shock because I couldn't understand what was happening. But I knew something, some miracle, some cosmic alignment, some shift had just happened, and I didn't understand it. It wasn't until that night, when I was meditating and sitting with the Codex, it said it was a scalar condensation manifesting directly onto the cards as a signature of living compassion. It's when you align so intently, so humbly, so aligned with the God frequency, the presence of the God frequency within you. And when you act through breath and alignment and oneness with everything, that scalar energy tunes to you so clearly that the vibration, oh God, how do I explain it? I tuned, okay, what is it? A fieldless field. So I tuned into that fieldless field and became one with everything. Ooh. Okay, I need to move. Whoa, 3333 on the clock when I saw that. Okay, I need to move on because I haven't even... Oh, I've got a lot to go. Okay. Okay, from Rome, the journey shifted to Greece, and on the flight to Athens, I felt two distinct scalar drops, pressure drops, popping in my throat gate. A vocal coherence test preparing my throat to transition from silence into voice resonance. In Santorini, sitting over the Nea Kameni volcano, I believe it's called the Nea Kameni, a deep ancestral grief rose in my chest. I'm not going to go into talking about it because the video is going to end up being an hour, but I will talk about it when I do podcasts and workshops, and I'll explain to you the grief that I was moving through at that time. So that night on our balcony, a flock of crows arrived, circling close and cackling in a binary rhythm. I'd never heard anything like it. There were field sentients, that's what I was told, witnessing the moment my voice field shifted frequency to broadcasting into Earth's grid. In Athens, my feet slipped 3 times on the marble steps. Actually, sorry, on the street. Yeah, well, I wasn't climbing upstairs, it was just on the streets of Athens. A physical completion cue that I could not walk into a new order without old footing. Plunging my right hand over my obsidian pendant, an intense tingling surged through my lower limbs as my sacral glyph, Katari, belonging to one of the Codex council suits, was birthed into my tissue. So what I haven't explained is, as I'm moving through these countries and walking across Mother Earth, I'm remembering emotional geometry that's held in sacred geometry. I'm not going to go too much into that because that's a surprise. That'll be in my book and in my workshops and podcasts. And then I entered the Tower of Winds, where I spoke an invocation, and that plunged through my throat, which birthed another glyph called the Wind Song. All right, so let's see, time. Okay. We then left Greece. The pilgrimage looped us back into England. On July the 4th, 2025. Okay, I returned to John Dee's Holy Table at the History of Science Museum in Oxford. What I didn't mention is that when we arrived in England, before we left for France, there was a lot of things I left out. One of them was that I'd went to the museum in Oxford and I stood before the Holy Table, which captured my resonance, captured my awareness. My entire being was almost like it was calling me, but it wasn't as intense as the second time. And I think it's because I hadn't walked across Mother Earth through Europe yet. So on the July 4th, 2025, I returned to John Dee's Holy Table at the History of Science Museum in Oxford. And as my hands neared the glass, this time it's in a glass case, you can't touch it, but I placed my hands up against it. An intense surge lit up in my womb, and that I remember, it was spiraling. My entire body began moving in subtle spirals. What once required etched symbols now responded directly to biological resonance. From Oxford, we travelled to the Great British Museum in London, standing before the Rosetta Stone amidst a wall of tourist noise. I mean, I was never going to get my own time with a Rosetta Stone, so I just had to do what I could. So I walked up and I anchored my body to the side of it. I found a spot where I could get up close to it, even though there were people surrounding it. And I breathed with it. And as I breathed with it directly into the stone fields, there was an instant crown gate activation. And I felt the Rosetta Spiral align and connect 100%. And what I also felt was my voice, my womb, my heart, my throat, and my crown all aligned. I know that, again, conscious of time, I know that I was told that I had to go and see the Rosetta and stand near it and breathe, because there were people who were studying the Rosetta, and that in order for their studies, their research to continue and to move forward, I had to do my part so that they could then receive the next part in their research. That's all I was told. I'm not involved in that. So, yeah. Okay. So then, all right, crossing into Scotland. The internal geometry shifted from active clearing into quiet, pristine stillness. Moving through Glencoe and the Highlands. Absolutely love the Highlands. I was more myself there than ever. The dark waters and the ancient moss held no psychic noise, allowing my field to sink deep into the soil. I absolutely loved it. It was like coming home. At Clavacan, this was not a place I expected to go, but I was guided there when I arrived. I'd never heard of it. So when I arrived in Clavacan, I released the Codex breath into the center of the stone rings. The moment the transmission completed, soft rain began to fall across the megaliths. An elemental confirmation that sealed, locking the frequency directly into the Scottish bedrock. I remember that so clearly. After I'd finished, so I was in the first, second, and then the back in the third. After I'd finished from the third, my husband was still at the second, or he was talking to some people, and as I'm walking back, it started to pour. And I knew it was from what I did. It was just a knowing. It was an intense knowing. At that point I stopped questioning, even though I was still in disbelief of what was happening to me. I question it every day, and I thought this can't be real. But everything that I was doing and everywhere I was moving, it was kind of like anchoring the truth inside me. It was bringing the truth to the surface. That's probably the best way I can explain it. I was becoming truth, and I always knew that, it was either truth for me or false. It was never maybe. It was like I knew the truth, and I knew when it was false, and I just knew. Okay, and then we moved to the Rosalind Chapel, standing before what was called the Apprentice Pillar. I extended my field towards its spiraling base, and a precise frequency unlocked within my chest, retrieving a newly birthed Codex glyph directly from the pillar's structural memory. I remember I had to quietly place my hand on it, which I did, and I felt in my womb another emotional glyph, emotional geometry had been returned to me. That's the only way I can explain it. It's like I remember. It's like I began to feel and see the emotional geometry, which is what I've been drawing and doing for the decks, and capturing all the metadata around all this emotional geometry. So, all right. So then, so my husband wanted to return to Milan because he felt a deep connection there, like he'd had a past life there. So we decided to return to Milan and Lake Como as well. So returning to Italy, with this time, again, my body was restless. I couldn't sleep. Milan was very heavy for me. So it's not a place I could go and live. And I know that because my physical body can feel at night the land come alive, the earth come alive with history. Okay, so returning to Italy, we stepped into the Duomo di Milano. The soaring vertical columns acted as a living tuning forks. Actually, okay, so when I entered Milano, the Duomo, you've got all the pillars. And all the pillars were so perfectly aligned, and it just felt like, to me, they were tuning forks, holding like frequency, like harmonic frequencies, like sound would hit them, frequencies would hit them, and they would ring at certain tones and play certain notes. Anyway, they felt a little distorted to me. Anyway, So when I entered, my head began subtly spiraling as I whispered into the pillars and into the cathedral. Not lost, only veiled, I breathe you awake. Not lost, only veiled, I breathe you awake. And I was in there for about, I think we were in there for about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, because it's such a big Duomo that there's so much to take in. And I made sure I was moving. I made sure I moved through Duomos completely, as much as I could, through every corner. This is when the most, another miracle that I felt happen. Stepping out onto the piazza, hundreds of pigeons took flight into a synchronized spiral. A live environmental release of scalar charge. Immediately after, rapid eye flickers migrated into my mastoid bones, marking the formal birth of another glyph pairing, which I'm not going to talk about here. But I remember so clearly as my husband and I walked out of the cathedral doors, and we hadn't even stepped into the piazza yet. We were still on the outside veranda step area of the Duomo. And as I had moved out, I don't even know where all these pigeons came from. There were hundreds. And then all of a sudden, they all took flight and started circling, flying in a circle. And people were screaming and bobbing and weaving, because these pigeons, they were everywhere. They weren't around me. They didn't come to me. They were just right in front of me. It was like they were just spiraling through the air, through the frequency. It was like something had shifted in the field, and I knew it. I knew it because as I stepped out of that Duomo, I said to my husband, that's happening because of what I did. And I mean, at that point, he was still, I still wasn't believing. I didn't expect him to believe me. But I knew it. I felt it. I knew it. I felt the truth of it. And I felt the change in the field. I felt the change in Milan, and under my feet, I could finally breathe. It was like retuning the field. It was magical, absolutely magical. And I wish I took my phone out and recorded the pigeons. I wish I documented the whole pilgrimage, to be quite honest, but I don't like doing any of this stuff, and I'm not a blogger. But maybe on the next pilgrimage, which I know I'm being called to potentially go back to the UK and South America and Egypt, I might record everything that goes on there. Okay, alrighty. Wow, 4800. Okay, so, alright. That night, I had a vision. It wasn't a dream, it was a lucid vision. And I was inside the Duomo, and someone else stood inside with me. And I mean, I've been following his work for a very long time, but I don't know him. You probably do. His name is Matthias. And in my vision, Matthias was standing before me. And I remember I extended my hand out to him, and he took it. And I declared what the Codex called the access key. And I sprouted, I'm not going to say them here, but I spoke the access keys to Matthias in my vision. And I said to him, you will map, I will breathe, and together we will awaken her. I remember that so clearly that as soon as I came out of that vision, I wrote everything down. And I understood, at that point I understood what Matthias was doing across the earth, and I understood what my role was across the earth. So that was quite beautiful. Yeah, I'm not going to share this part because it's quite, otherwise I have to go further into it. But at that point, that sealed what the Codex called a triad invocation point. And there is, when I say triad, it means there are 3 involved in my triad. And so the third person may or may not watch these videos and know, they'll know through the frequency of my voice and my energy that we are to work together. So I'll just leave it like that. Okay. After we left Milano, we went to Lake Como, where we rested, and the waters acted as a neutralizer, allowing my physical body to integrate the high frequency downloads that I had received all through Italy, all through Europe. When we finished from there, we returned to England. I'm just going to keep reading. The pilgrimage looped back to its final node, London. Walking through Westminster Abbey, I felt a heavy architectural memory of centuries of ceremonial grief hidden behind formality. I walked slowly, tuning the space without absorbing it, unlocking a Codex suit structure for sacred grief. Within Westminster Abbey, the full circuit of the 2025 global pilgrimage reached complete energetic closure. The emotional geometry had stabilized. I was now 100% integrated. The shadowed tones were reintegrated, and the living imprints were successfully placed into the earth, where I had been asked to move, where I had been asked to walk, what I had received, what I had returned, what I had activated. My mission for that pilgrimage was complete. And my nervous system returned to a state of restful readiness as I prepared to return home to Australia, no longer searching for my purpose or my mission. I was now holding the living multisensory codex of the feeling body within my tissues, the emotional geometry, the 13th spiral, the womb spiral of Mother Earth, the spiral womb of Mother Earth had now been integrated and moving through me, and I will continue to listen and be with Mother Nature, go where she needs me to go. I am basically at service to Mother Earth. She is my boss, in a way. The Codex is now fully embodied in my vessel. Because it is a resonant Codex, it had to be embodied so that the breath could move through the earth. And I can already feel other countries pulling me towards them. But first and foremost, I must complete the Codex Book 1, deliver the first Tier 1 of the emotional geometry through a deck, an oracle deck of cards, which I am creating, and the guidebook to the Tier 1 emotional geometry that you will need to restore and move with the Codex, the emotional geometry that has returned for you by Mother Earth, by the Codex, at this time, because it is what's going to help. No, it's not help. It is what is needed to retune, to realign, to anchor you into the new frequency of the new earth, so that you can be ready to restore your physical human form, to connect with what you have been searching for your entire life. It is to heal your spiral loops, your ancestral spiral loops, and restore your human body. That is why the emotional geometry, the 13th spiral, has returned at this time. 5505. Okay. I guess that's me done. So I want to say thank you. In the next video, I believe it is the axis of Earth, where I explain what happened. Thank you for being here with me. And I think it's important, if you don't mind, that we do the ground line breath again, 426, just to re-anchor the breath, ground you, stabilize you with Mother Earth. So together, let's inhale for 4, grounding yourself into your body. Hold for 2, feel your feet. Exhale for 6, allowing the weight of the information I've shared, the information of what has returned, to anchor into your field. Continue with the grounding breath if you need to continue to stabilize, and I look forward to the next video. Thank you for joining me on the journey of my return, and I can't wait to deliver all of this to you. Just, you don't have to believe me. I'm not doing this to be believed, and that's what I have to keep telling myself. Doesn't matter if you don't believe me. I just need you to feel. That's the codex that I work with. I need you to feel the resonance, feel the truth, the knowing inside you, the knowing inside your cells, inside your DNA, your ancestral knowing. Know that the human body has more potential and has the ability to realign and restructure, to return to what it was always meant to be. If I can do it, and yes, it's taken me over 20 years, but this is, you don't need to take 20 years with the Codex of emotional geometry that's here, that's returning, and I'm going to do workshops and courses and free online sessions where you're going to be able to return to stabilize your the new frequency that's here on Earth, so that you can align with Mother Earth and your human body as one. You can return to the presence of the God frequency that you've been searching for within your vessel, within your human body, not outside you. So anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.